Sao Paulo. Interview marathon recruiting for the next MBA class. We hardly had a minute to breathe between one interview and the other. Suddenly, my colleague comes into my office. You can feel some sort of anxiety on her face, and she says, "I cannot take the next interview. I know the candidate very well. I've had many interactions with him. So in order to be neutral, can we swap interviews?" His name is Daniel. And I said, "Sure, no problem." I had to read his application quite quickly, as the guy was already waiting for me at the lobby, and then walked and went to greet him. So after the usual chit-chat before starting an interview, I asked my first question: "Who is Daniel?" He said, "I have no idea." At that time, I really didn't know how to react. Usually, when you have in front of you a candidate, you know about him as much as his application tells you, but you know more or less who the other person is. So I found really shocking that the guy that had put together his application didn't know who he was. So I said, "But how come? You are Daniel." And he said, "No, I'm not. I'm Peter." So at that time, I started freaking out. I've been admissions director at IESE for 6 years, interviewed more than 2,000 candidates from 64 different countries, and never had a situation like this. So my immediate reaction was to start looking at the corners of the office, looking for a hidden camera, as I thought, somebody here is having a great time, and it's not me. So to summarize the story, what happened is that we had two candidates that were identical. They could have been twins. So when my colleague saw Peter at the lobby, she confused him by Daniel, which led me to reading the wrong file and being in front of a complete stranger. So what is the point that I want to make? Why do I start my interviews asking, "Who are you?" When you're interviewing a candidate, you are exposing yourself to the other. You are in some way opening them the door into your life. So it really doesn't matter if you're interviewing to hire somebody for your team, or if you're checking if a candidate is right for an MBA program, or if you're hiring a babysitter. In the end, the underlying question is that person eligible to be part of my life? Do I want to go to work every day and talk to this person? Do I want this candidate to be part of my alumni network? Do I want this university student to have the keys of my home and take care of my children? So when you tackle an interview from this point of view, things change completely. And it really doesn't matter if you are the interviewer or the interviewee, because the interview process does not become a competition of who is the smartest or who has achieved the most things, but who is the one that can build more trust. So in the end, who is eligible to be part of your life? So back to the question, who are you? Why do I think this is important? If you don't know who you are, how are we going to start building that trust? How will you know where you want to go, what you want to achieve, and what's more important, how are you going to achieve it? So very often when I'm asking this question, the type of answer that I get is, "Hi, I'm Catherine, I'm 29, I studied engineering, I started working for this company, then I moved to this other company where I got promoted twice, then I changed, then I've earned so many awards," and then the list of achievements goes on and on and on and on. And many times I have to stop them and say, hold on. Is that really who you are? Let me rephrase the question. If I ask your mother who you are, what would she say? And then the answer changes completely. They become more personal. They start telling you how ambitious they are. Also that they have some challenges. And then they have some areas of improvement. That's the time even when they start sharing their dreams. And then it's when the conversation becomes interesting. Heraclitus once said, day by day, what you choose, what you think, and what you do is what you become. I really like the fact that he says what we do last, because we tend to think that we are our achievements, and we are much more than that. We are also our thoughts and our choices. So remember, we are 1/3 our thoughts, 1/3 our achievements, and 1/3 our choices. Which leads me to my next point. Very often, in an interview, we just want to show the best of ourselves. And this is very natural, don't get me wrong. But also as an interviewer, what I want to see is if I have in front of me a real human being. And guess what? Humans make mistakes. I know this notion can be uncomfortable, but it's part of how we mature. Life is made of choices. Sometimes we are right, but sometimes we are not. But it's not how many times you fail, but also how quickly you stand up and start fighting again. So quite often in an interview, we just want to portray this magnificent tree. So we only want to show how green our leaves are, or even how strong our trunk is. But we forget about what's underneath, what's below the surface. And that, as an interviewer, is what I need to know to start building that trust. I want to learn about your roots, about your value system, about your achievements, but also about your failures. Because all of this is, in the end, what makes us who we are. Peter Drucker once said, "The better a man is, the more mistakes will he make, for the more new things he will try." A while ago, one candidate shared with me this experience. He had to trade with some commodities, and he made a human mistake, which could have happened to any of us. But that mistake led him to lose $2 million. $2 million. That's a lot of money. So he embraced his mistake. He went to talk to his boss and told him the situation. So his boss gave him 24 hours to fix that problem and recover the money. And he did. But when he was sharing with me that example, I could really sense how much he suffered, how much he struggled, but also how much he learned. And I'm sure that if that situation comes again, he will never make that mistake again. So when you're having this type of conversations, what you have in front of you is a much more mature person. And it's only then when you connect. So remember, an interview is about building trust. And that's the role for both the interviewer and the interviewee, because it becomes a game of give and take. So we want to learn your stories, what you felt, how you reacted. But it's not so much what you say, but also how you say it. Quite often, I ask this question to candidates, and I say, tell me what is your main trait? And the answer sometimes is, I'm a highly motivated individual. So come on. Many times I'm tempted to say, really? Highly motivated? I don't believe that. But once I asked a candidate to share with me an experience where she had to communicate bad news. She was a consultant, so in my mind, I thought that she was going to share with me a situation where maybe she had to tell the client that there was going to be a major delay in the project, or maybe that they had to restructure much more than what was previously scoped. But then her facial expression changed completely. I could really tell that she was having a very hard time sharing with me that experience. And she was also on the verge of tears. So what happened is that her boyfriend had had a car accident a few weeks back, and she was the one having to break the news to his parents. Wow. It took me a while to recover from this. So quite often, as an interviewer, I need to keep reminding myself that I'm dealing with people, with their lives. When your job is to make hundreds of interviews every year, it's very easy to get into interview mode, press play, and go through the same set of questions over and over again. And that's very dangerous because you lose connection. But you also miss a great opportunity to be amazed by people and learn from them. And many times during interviews, you also need to be ready to expect the unexpected. A few weeks back, I asked the candidate, "What would you like me to take away from this interview?" The candidate said, "My telephone number." Actually, it's not what you're thinking. She came from a completely different background and also culture than mine, and she explained, "I really enjoyed this conversation, and despite the outcome, I would love to stay in touch." So in the end, this is what it's all about. Not just doing interviews, but having great conversations. Conversations that lead you to connect with the other, to get to know who they really are, and in the end, open them the door into your life. Thank you.